Antarctica, the last untouched continent on Earth. A frozen wasteland protected by international treaty for over 60 years. But reports emerging from geological surveys and leaked research documents suggest something that should terrify you. Massive potential oil and gas reserves lie beneath the ice, and the race to claim them reveals something dark about human nature and the collapse of international order. While you are distracted by wars and elections, major powers are positioning themselves for what could trigger the greatest geopolitical crisis of the 21st century. And most people have absolutely no idea what's coming. Before we go further, let me be clear. There is no officially approved drilling in Antarctica today. The Antarctic Treaty prohibits resource extraction. What you're about to hear is a pattern analysis of where global energy politics may be heading based on geological data, geopolitical movements, and historical precedent. This is about understanding the forces at play before they become undeniable reality. Let me tell you what's really happening in Antarctica, because the mainstream media gives you isolated reports without connecting the dots. They mention research stations, scientific surveys, geological findings, but they're missing the bigger picture. Major powers haven't been systematically expanding their Antarctic presence for decades out of scientific curiosity alone. They've been preparing, and the psychology behind it reveals something terrifying about what happens when resources run scarce. Geological surveys and speculative studies suggest potentially 511 billion barrels of oil equivalent and massive natural gas deposits beneath Antarctic ice. To put that in perspective, if these estimates prove accurate, that's comparable to the entire proven reserves of Saudi Arabia. That's enough oil to power the global economy for over a decade. And it's sitting beneath a continent that nobody owns, protected only by a treaty that's increasingly under pressure. Here's where the psychology gets dark. The Antarctic Treaty of 1961 was signed when the world believed in international cooperation, when nations thought they could rise above their base instincts for resources and power. It banned military activity, nuclear testing, and resource extraction in Antarctica. It was supposed to preserve the continent for scientific research and peaceful purposes forever. But that treaty is based on collective agreement, on trust, on the belief that nations will honor their commitments even when trillions of dollars might be at stake. And we're watching that belief face unprecedented pressure in real time. This is the same pattern we see in failing international agreements, everyone pretending the rules will hold when the reality is that power and resources ultimately drive behavior. Russia's actions in Ukraine, China's expansion in the South China Sea, the weakening of international institutions. All of this signals we're entering an era where might increasingly makes right, where treaties face challenges, where the strong take what they want and the weak protest.
The timing of increased Antarctic activity isn't accidental. Global oil reserves in accessible locations are depleting. The easy-to-extract oil is running out. Energy prices remain volatile. The world continues to depend heavily on fossil fuels, regardless of climate commitments. Major powers are positioning themselves around what could be the last great untapped oil reserve on Earth, and they're doing it while the West is divided and distracted. Think about the strategic implications. Whoever controls access to Antarctic resources controls potential leverage over global energy for decades. They influence prices, they influence supply, they influence which nations get energy and which don't. This isn't just about money, this is about geopolitical dominance for the rest of the century. And major powers are making moves while others are still operating under old assumptions. But here's what should really concern you. If the Antarctic Treaty faces successful challenges, if resource extraction begins despite current prohibitions, the floodgates open. Multiple powers will make their moves. China has been systematically expanding their presence in Antarctica, building research stations, conducting surveys. The United States won't cede strategic resources to rivals. Europe will demand considerations. Every nation with the capability will position to stake claims. We're talking about a potential resource scramble that could make historical colonial competitions look restrained. And Antarctica isn't like the Middle East or Africa. It's not divided into countries with governments you can negotiate with or influence. It's pristine wilderness under international protection. Extracting resources there means drilling through ice sheets, operating in the harshest environment on Earth, risking environmental catastrophe on a scale we've never seen. One major oil spill in Antarctica doesn't just affect a coastline, it potentially affects global ocean currents, marine ecosystems, the entire planetary climate system. But when nations perceive their survival or dominance at stake, do long-term environmental consequences stop them? The psychology of perceived resource scarcity is predictable and terrifying. When resources seem abundant, nations cooperate, trade, build systems. But when nations perceive resources becoming scarce, when they see competition intensifying, behavior changes. Hoarding, aggression, zero-sum thinking. We take what we need and rationalize the consequences. This is observable throughout history. This is tribal survival instinct dressed up in modern geopolitics. And it's exactly the pattern we're seeing develop around Antarctica right now. Increased Antarctic activity from major powers is a signal. They're indicating we're positioning for future possibilities. We see potential strategic value, and we're going to secure our options before others do. The question isn't whether other nations will respond. The question is how quickly and how intensely.
Let me paint you a picture of what could develop. Within the next 5 to 10 years, we may see increasing strategic presence in Antarctica beyond purely scientific missions. Nations may push boundaries of the treaty, testing interpretations, seeing what's tolerated. There could be territorial posturing, rival claims, standoffs between vessels operating under different flags. At some potential tipping point, someone may attempt extraction. Perhaps a major power, perhaps a private entity with state backing, perhaps through creative legal interpretations. And once the first barrel might be extracted, the treaty faces existential crisis. Then could come the rush. Multiple nations racing to establish operations, to secure positions, to extract resources before international mechanisms, if any effective ones exist, can respond. And here's the darkest irony. This could all develop while climate change accelerates, while Antarctica's ice sheets melt, while global sea levels rise. We could be pursuing the fossil fuels that are melting the ice we're drilling through, accelerating the very crisis that makes the resources more accessible. It's a potential death spiral of human short-sightedness and desperation. The environmental consequences could be catastrophic. Antarctica contains 90% of the world's ice and 70% of its fresh water. Drilling operations would require massive infrastructure, ports, refineries, pipelines, storage facilities, pristine wilderness transformed into industrial zones. Oil spills in freezing water are nearly impossible to remediate. The oil doesn't break down, it doesn't disperse, it persists in ecosystems for decades. Marine life, penguins, seals, whales would face devastation. And global impacts extend beyond Antarctica. Disrupting Antarctic ecosystems could affect ocean currents that regulate climate worldwide. Changes to weather patterns, fishing stocks, coastal regions. The consequences would be felt everywhere by everyone. But the decision makers are typically insulated from worst effects. They have resources to adapt, to relocate, to survive whatever comes. It's regular people who suffer. Coastal communities that flood, developing nations facing food insecurity. The people making these decisions rarely pay the price. So what does this mean for you? First, understand that energy markets face increasing geopolitical weaponization. If major powers gain control over Antarctic resources, they gain enormous leverage over energy-dependent nations. They can favor allies with access and pressure rivals with restrictions. Your energy costs, gas, heating, electricity, become subject to geopolitical competitions you can't control. Second, prepare for potential international tensions. Antarctica could become a new flashpoint. Territorial disputes, strategic competition, possibly confrontations between major powers. This raises risks of escalation, of miscalculation, of broader conflict. Third, recognize that international frameworks face unprecedented pressure. The Antarctic Treaty was supposed to demonstrate humanity could cooperate, could prioritize long-term survival over short-term gain. If it fails under resource pressure, every other international agreement looks vulnerable. Climate accords, trade agreements, arms control treaties, all of it faces questions when nations decide rules don't serve their interests. Here's what you need to do. Diversify energy dependence where possible.
Solar, efficiency improvements, anything that reduces vulnerability to volatile energy markets controlled by hostile actors. Understand your investments face geopolitical risk. Energy stocks, transportation, anything tied to global trade, it's vulnerable to disruptions from resource competitions. Consider your exposure and comfort with that risk. Watch the indicators. Monitor Antarctic activities from major powers. Watch for presence increases beyond scientific norms. Look for infrastructure development disguised as research. When multiple nations position significant assets in Antarctic regions, that signals escalating competition. Build resilience. Resource conflicts lead to supply chain disruptions. Have contingencies for essentials. Don't assume global systems will function smoothly indefinitely. We're entering an era of increasing instability. The timeline remains uncertain, but the trajectory is clear. Major powers have made their moves. Others are watching and planning responses. The next few years will determine whether the Antarctic Treaty endures or becomes a historical curiosity and naive agreement from a more cooperative time. I'm watching several indicators. Military and civilian presence levels from major powers in Antarctica. If they increase significantly beyond scientific justification, that confirms strategic intentions. International responses from other nations. If they're weak or non-existent, that signals acquiescence. Energy market volatility. If prices spike amid supply concerns, that accelerates the race for new resources. Climate data from Antarctica. As ice becomes more accessible, extraction becomes more feasible and more tempting. This isn't about taking sides, this is about recognizing observable reality. We're potentially watching the final act of the hydrocarbon age develop. The world still runs predominantly on oil and gas. Accessible reserves are depleting, and nations will do what they perceive necessary to secure resources, consequences rationalized later. Increased Antarctic activity isn't just geological curiosity, it's potentially a signal that the era of international cooperation faces its greatest test. It indicates we may be entering a period of intensified resource competition, and history shows us exactly how that typically develops. Resource conflicts, environmental damage, weakening of international order. The powerful take what they want, and the weak adapt or suffer. This is observable human behavior when scarcity pressures hit. We like to think we're civilized, that we've evolved beyond primitive tribalism. But when survival or dominance seems at stake, when resources appear scarce, historical patterns tend to repeat. Major powers understand this, they're acting on it, and others with capability will likely respond.
The Antarctic Treaty was humanity's attempt to prove we could be better, that we could protect something for future generations, that we could cooperate instead of compete. It faces unprecedented pressure, not because of climate change or technical limitations. It faces pressure because of human psychology, because we struggle to resist the lure of resources, because short-term advantages often win over long-term survival, because we're frequently incapable of making hard choices until consequences become unavoidable. And by the time we fully recognize what we've lost, Antarctica could be fundamentally changed, resources extracted and consumed, and we'll face consequences we can't reverse. So here's my question for you. Are you ready for a world where international frameworks face increasing challenges, where resources drive more aggressive competition, where environmental consequences get rationalized in the race for strategic advantage? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And subscribe to The Wealth Historian so you never miss the untold histories behind world-changing wealth and power. Because understanding the patterns developing around Antarctica today could prepare you for the resource competitions of tomorrow. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand where these trends are heading. Hit the notification bell because this story is just beginning. Stay alert, stay prepared, and remember, when rules face pressure, power dynamics increasingly determine outcomes. Until next time, question everything.